Hello, and welcome to episode 64 of Waxing Lyrical with Mains and Duts. I'm your host, Mains. My colleague in Rainford, trying not to eat his whole house, is Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
Trying is the key word.
If you were a shape, you'd be a triangle, I believe.
That's right.
That's not a good look, Dutton.
Well, you say that, but let's think about some notable triangles: Dairy Lee, Doritos, Toblerone,
Bermuda.
No, people disappear. And to be fair, anything comes near this triangle, if it's food related, it does disappear.
The thing is, Dutton, as we agreed with James last week on the show, we're going to do a 5k when we go to Wembley, so you can't be 14 stone because you'll die.
It'll come together, don't worry.
Okay.
It's all part of the plan.
So, Dutton, we're back. 3 weeks on the run, ladies and gents. This has got to be a record. It's almost like we're professionally organising this. This week, another guest, Dutton.
Mm-hmm.
It's James's podcast partner, Mr. Will Gavin.
He's going to be with us. To reply.
Sorry?
We give him the right to reply.
We give him the right to reply, Dutton. He's going to be on with us. He's going to talk his life in general, and again, Tuesday morning football. But before that, Dutton, we're going to give something everyone who listens to this pod loves. So, Dutton, people have been talking about the pod, and you've noticed over the last few weeks you've been a little calm. And by a little calm, for you, very calm. Do you know what, Dutton? I'm going to change this right now. Ladies and gents, waxers. Okay. I've got you a Dutton rant special. I'll pick 5 topics that I know Dutton will have an opinion on, and we want to hear it. I've probably heard it 400 million times, but you may not have. You may be the lucky ones. But you know what? You're not going to be lucky anymore because you're going to hear all about it. Are you ready, Neil?
I'm ready, yeah.
Born ready for this, Neil. Born ready. The first one. I don't know if you saw this news thing, and I really want your opinion on it. Companies using Twitter for PR. So, I don't know if you saw this great story about the New York City police who put forward get a picture, tweet a picture of yourself with the police, which they thought would be, nice arm in arm next to, the Statue of Liberty. However, started becoming pictures of police violence towards members of the public, and went global with other police forces then being pulled into this New York City thing done. Mm-hmm. I'm interested in using Twitter as a PR for a massive company and responding to other people, to the general public on Twitter, is surely a recipe for disaster.
Oh, you're opening up Pandora's box, because as we've seen, Twitter has given every single person with access to a computer, a tablet, a phone, it's given them a voice, and all they need for that voice, that everyone is filled with righteous indignation about something, but most of us don't know what. Twitter has given us this thing, especially to companies like the NYPD who use it for this. You give an end product to that voice. So it's one of those, as they say, there was one the other day, ask Derek Acora. I assume he must have been doing a live tweet. Did you see some of the questions he got asked?
I didn't. Can you enlighten us, Dutton, without swearing?
Some of the best ones were, because as we know, Derek Acora is, a medium. So, what am I wearing? Someone put that. The best one of that was, I came up with, you would, wouldn't you? Because if he's a medium, he must know what I'm talking about.
Of course.
And there was one a couple of months ago, it was Ask Gary Barlow, and Uncle Andrew put, is it straight on here or do I turn left? You're just inviting disaster by asking the general public. It's the same as before there was Twitter. Someone came up with Sky Digital and came up with the red button. Text us or, let us know your opinion. No. You're getting paid an awful lot of money. You produce the content. I'll sit and watch, thank you. But if you do want my opinion, you won't like it.
But this is the thing. It's like you listen to the radio now and they're getting questions and opinions from people in 140 characters. How do you even form an opinion in 140 characters without swearing 4 times?
Well, yeah.
And using 3 exclamation marks?
if you invite a mass response, it's one of those. It's Clement Freud, the great late Sir Clement Freud. He said, "I am not rude. I am honest." So if you ask me a question, be prepared that you will not like the answer. So if it's something, what do you think of my wife compared to what? One of his answers. How's your dog? Dead. It's not being rude, it's being honest. He's being canvassed for an opinion of which there may be an answer you don't like. If you don't want the answer, don't ask the question.
Don't ask the question.
So don't start, don't send these things out saying, show us your happy memories of the NYPD, and then be pissed off when you get pictures of people having the crap kicked out of them by New York City's finest.
Couldn't agree more, Dutton. Rant 2, which I kind of baited you on a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week, with Kate. My Kate, not your Kate. That gets confusing, by the way.
Not that confusing.
No. Especially because they live 300 miles away from each other. People love it now. The President of the United States has done it. Ellen DeGeneres did it with the Wales-Midland-law. And every time Arsenal win a football match, they do it. Talk me through your opinions on the selfie.
The selfie is self-indulgent crap, judged by the fact that everyone has a phone. As I've spoken in the past, the first advances of photography have always been for titillation. The first person who got a Polaroid camera and realised, I don't have to take this to the camera shop. I'm going to take a picture of my balls. Of course we did. The first person who got a mobile phone and thought, now I don't even have to get these pictures developed. I can keep them forever. Of course they took a picture of their arse in a mirror. That's where the selfie began. What's the point of it? I know what I look like. And plus, the angles I try and take a selfie at, because I've got such quite a prominent head, I can never quite get myself in, so I always look slightly bewildered. But what are you doing? I thought, it's look at this beautiful scene, look where I am, look what I'm taking in, and look at my fat head in the way of it. Take a picture of the Niagara Falls, but tell you what, if you put a picture of yourself in front of Niagara Falls, jump in.
Harsh, Dutton, but I quite like it. So you're not going to take a selfie. So when we go to Cologne, Familia's stag do, there's no mains Dutch selfie.
No, someone else can take it. Because I saw a picture, someone put a picture on Twitter the other day, selfie, I can see both your hands. How's that a selfie?
That's a non-selfie unless you've got 3 hands and then you're like an X-Man.
Which case, in which case, I'm pretty sure you shouldn't be on, roaming the public.
Yeah, definitely. You should be in the circus.
Yeah.
Don't know the next one. It's actually my favourite. It's public transport. It's your daily fight with Merseyrail and the train. Just let it out, Dutton. This is cathartic. Let out your thoughts on public transport.
Timetables are either a steadfast rule or they're a guideline. If they're a guideline, don't put numbers on them. Because apparently the trains are supposed to leave my station on the quarter of an hour. That's on the hour, 1:15, 2:30. They never do. It's 16 minutes past, or 17 minutes past, and the only thing worse than the train arriving late is the train that arrives early. Every single train I've got home for the last week, and I've only been counting this in a week, is supposed to leave Liverpool Central at, it's on like the 25 past, or 22, or 5 to. It never does. So it's supposed to arrive back at McGull at, let's say, if I get the 20 to 6 train from Liverpool Central to McGull, that's supposed to get me into McGull at 2 minutes past 6.
Okay.
No, never has. 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. What's the delay? You're sitting there on the platform. Have the timetable or don't.
What about people who get public transport done?
it's hard to put this, but my biggest gripe with some people who use public transport is if you're going to use public transport, wash. If you stink, do not get on a train with me. Because I have no sense of smell. As we've established in the past, I have very, very poor sense of smell due to my many times broken nose. If I can smell you, other people have smelt you first. Don't sit next to me. Don't get on the same train as me. In fact, don't get on the same platform as me. If you can get yourself up in the morning and have a wash and then go to work, I honestly wouldn't want to work with you all day.
I hate public transport mainly due to the first word, which is public. I can deal with trains being minutes late here and there, but the people who get on public transport make me very sad for the population as a whole. I think most of them should be rounded up and put somewhere else, preferably nowhere near where I am. Don, I'm interested because we discussed this before. We got news that Toby Jones or Armin Zola from Captain America is going to be playing me, Captain Mannering. Not technically me, but the dude from Dad's Army. So, where do we stand on remakes? And after you've told me about that, if you had a film about your life, which is coming soon, I'm sure, to a multiplex near you, who would play you?
I refuse to believe that of all the multi-millions of dollars that are spent making, producing, writing, directing films, TV shows, that things have to be remade. Now, I know we have this historical, historical concept that there are only 7 basic stories. Well, I'm sorry, which of these 7 basic story trees does Dad's Army fall into?
I have no idea, by the way.
Dad's Army is and was one of Britain's greatest sitcoms, one of its best loved. Why does it need to be remade? Because I'll tell you this now, it won't be as funny.
Dutton, do you know why it needs to be remade? And I'll tell you right now. Because every time I say my name, it's Paul Mannering, spelt Mainwaring. I can then say, it's like Captain and Dad's Army again. Because now everyone you work with is too young to watch Dad's Army, so they have no idea what I'm talking about. I think this is exactly why Dad's Army is done out. I think my granddad, as one of his last moves, was to get this film into pre-production.
But if I go to HMV, if they are still any there, and all that's entertainment, do you know what I can buy these days? Box sets of shows that were made more than a week ago. Watch the original Dad's Army.
I've watched it.
Need remaking, because there's 2 ways it will go. One, they'll rehash the old jokes that are now no longer topical and will sound forced. Or 2, they'll try and make it more modern day. How do you make it modern day? Oh God, we don't have it anymore.
Yeah,
I don't know if have you watched any? Have you gone back recently and watched any the classic '90s comedies like Paul Whitehouse and Harry Enfield, The Fast Show? Goodness gracious me!
Not in recent months, no.
I have laughed at documentaries on the Discovery Channel more than I've laughed at these things.
The Fast Show.
Yeah,
I loved The Fast Show, Dutton.
I loved The Fast Show. It's not funny. Is
it past tense? Oh no, that hurts.
So I mean, Ted and Ralph is still funny in a sweet. No, that's quite good. And Rowan Burke and QC is quite funny because he was just talking waffle anyway. Some of the others, it's like I laughed at this crap. But where's something that may on first appearance be puerile, facile, and we should all have got over it as we get older. Well, I'm sorry, I still guffaw heartily at men behaving badly. But you don't need to remake it.
We don't need to remake it, on. And before we get off this on the remakes, like I haven't really garnered your opinion on the pictures of the people who are going to be in Star Wars Episode 7. Do you have any?
It's hard for me to comment without knowing what type of characters they're going to be, Because as we know, Star Wars has this strange thing that there's been only seven, so there's been 6 films. Unfortunately, Star Wars canon is a lot larger in the sense that all the books form part of official canon. So any Star Wars novel that's been written is classed as part of the story. So the only thing I can conjecture is this is either going to go against established Star Wars canon 30 years into the future and piss off all the real Star Wars geeks, or this story has already been written somewhere and it exists in one of these novels. But as I've not read extensively, I don't know who these characters are going to be.
Okay.
So I can't really comment. But I'm glad that the originals are going to still be in it. The only disappointment for me is no Lando.
Well, there's a reason for that, obviously.
Yeah, he looks like he's wintered well since 1983.
Yeah, true. Done. Final rant. It's the easy one. Just talk me through professional footballers, please.
Overpaid, mollycoddled, full of themselves, gits. These people are taken from a very early age, about 8 or 9, and are sequestered away from society. Where talks like football, gentle, highly hygienic. As soon as these people get a sniffle of the slightest bit of the flu, it goes through the entire club, knocks out 20 people. They have no immune system worth the name, so they can't function in normal society. They expect everything to go. The game itself stinks. I mean, I generally can't watch it because I can't stand people diving. And if anyone comes up with it, yeah, but everyone does it. Really, thanks for that. That makes it okay.
Do you know what, Dutton? It doesn't. Maybe I'm just the minority, but that just doesn't bother me. And I don't know whether I've become immune to it or numb or whatever. But if I'm honest, I look now and I think it's nowhere near as bad as it was, say, 6 or 7 years ago. Maybe I've got blinkers on. I don't know, but it just doesn't feel as bad.
Yeah, is that because now it's being a former sociology student, not a very good one, I recognise that the path between crime and deviance, most deviant behaviour starts off being criminal, but then as it becomes more accepted, it just becomes deviant until eventually it becomes mainstream.
Maybe done.
People dived, it was cheating, they got booked and were ostracised.
But he didn't, though. That's the thing. When people dived, no one ever booked them. They've never been booked for diving. Jürgen Klinsmann was never booked for diving. He dived all his whole career. No one in Italy ever got booked for diving. The only country where people moan their arse off about it is England. Because for some reason we think we've got this higher power, which is ironic really, as we can't, tie our shoelaces and play footy at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
Because we've run out of things to moan about this country, as I've just proved.
Yeah, true. I don't know. Professional footballers are tremendously too well paid. It's outrageous. Unfortunately, it's market economics, and if someone offered you that money, you ain't turning it down. It's just the way of the world. You don't have to like it. It's just the way we live in.
Yeah, I need some rehab.
Dutton, do you feel a bit better, a bit more cathartic? Let it out.
I do. I should point out though that next week, one of us is taking some kind of holiday.
I'm going to Cyprus. Woo!
So, I'm faced with the fact that being a technologically less advanced person than you, I'm going to, it's basically, I can either do nothing and spend a Wednesday evening, in the company of my fiancée, or I could just do like a 20-minute podcast by myself, ranting about stuff.
I think you can do it, Dutton.
I'll leave it up to the Twitterverse.
I think you could. So you need to tweet Dutton.
Tweet
at
me.
ndutton13.
Yeah, anything you want my views on. If I get enough, I'll see what I can do.
Excellent. Let's prove that Dutton isn't a Luddite and did IT as part of his degree at university. And on that note, Dutton, let's move on. And now, Dutton, a guest. Our guest this week is Mr. Will Gavin. Will is a freelance radio producer and presenter with a passion for sports broadcasting.
Are you just reading my LinkedIn?
I am. It's amazing. That's why I'm doing it, Will. Most recently here presenting the UK's exclusive radio coverage of the NFL on Absolute Radio.
Yes,
I'm going to do other stuff, Will, off your LinkedIn profile. presenter of the UK exclusive NFL coverage on Absolute Radio 90s, which is actually my favourite radio station, funnily enough, which kind of proves my age. Premier League international commentator, producer and presenter of Tuesday Morning Football. He helps with a multitude of producing jobs on TalkSport. Also does news and bit of co-hosting on Extra Time, which is the overnight show, and was previously the match day commentator for Walsall Football Club.
My favourite job ever.
Awesome.
That is an awesome job. Ladies and gents, Waxers, Mr. Will Gavin. How are we, Will?
Yeah, very well. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you both doing?
Absolutely fantastic.
Oh, that's good to hear. Is that because Chelsea have just been knocked out of the Champions League?
I have got a text from a joint friend of ours, Dutton, Mr. Ian Mullen. I can't say any of the words in this text, and there are 40 words.
Explicit rating on iTunes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
There's literally 40 words, and I think I can say have, that, you, of, rot, and that's it. I'll let the listeners guess what the rest of it was. But he's very happy, and he doesn't like Chelsea.
It's a sentiment echoed by a lot of us. All this stuff about the negative football, I'm really, really pleased that what it's proven now after Jose yesterday came out and said all this stuff about the philosophers of football, it's all about winning. You know, had they gone to Atleti last week and tried to score an away goal and come away from that, even with a score draw, they'd have been in such a stronger position tonight. And tonight just showed how important away goals were. The moment Atletico scored, Chelsea were on the back foot because they knew that they knew that they had the away goal, and they just fell apart.
So, if you're looking to go to Madrid, I'd suggest late May, as the rest of Madrid will be in Lisbon watching the Champions League final.
Or go to Lisbon.
Or go to Lisbon, as me and Dutton have been to Madrid, and hopefully half the women from Madrid will be there. Only the half that we saw.
The problem we had in Madrid is when there was a major international football tournament on, we emptied an Irish bar.
Of beer.
In terms of bottles.
Of beer. Spain, Italy. We just absolutely ransacked the place. We're hoping to do the same in Cologne, although there's no 40 on when we go to Cologne, is there, done?
Don't think so.
So,
I mean, arranged anything for us.
No, that's Melia's fault. Bad organising, it's Melia's brother, the best man.
So,
let's move on before Will falls asleep on us talking about a holiday that we're not going on.
I'm heading out to Chile this summer, last week of July, for a few weeks, and I researched it last night. The new Chilean league season starts on the 27th of July, so I'm going to go watch a couple of Colo games while I'm out there, and I can't wait. Watching football abroad is brilliant. It's one of the best experiences, and actually it makes me realise how rubbish it is going to the Medeski Stadium week in, week out like I did for so many years.
You're a better man than me doing that, I have to say. So we got some questions, Will. We don't want to keep you too long, because obviously you're a busy man.
As long as you want me.
The first question I've got, really, and it's a TalkSport related question, and I have to say I've grown to love TalkSport over the past 18 months, doing a lot of driving with work, but I've got one question. Does Adrian Durham actually believe what he's saying, or is he just doing it to get me really angry and try and call when I'm driving?
I mean, it would be unfair of me to pull back that curtain too much and reveal everything about whether or not it was true, but certainly a big part of doing that sort of role, and it's not just Adrian who does it, you look across the station, plenty of others do it, is that you need to take a side on a debate. That's the way people are going to call in. If you sit on the fence and if you say everyone's got a good point, yeah, nice point, mate, good one, it doesn't really work like that. Drive gets so many calls and gets people so irate. There are certain things he definitely believes in. The Daily Arsenal, he is 100% behind that. We have had complaints from Arsenal to the point where our programming director came into a Drive meeting whilst I was working on the show and asked, maybe is it time to retire the Daily Arsenal? And Adrian's answer was simply, when they win a trophy, I will stop doing the Daily Arsenal. Obviously, when they reached the FA Cup final, that day he came in and said, Yeah, the FA Cup's not a real trophy, though. I'm looking for the league or the Champions.
Fantastic.
So he definitely believes a lot of it, but yeah, there's times he's playing devil's advocate and pushes the point a bit further. And he is a far humbler and nicer bloke off air than people probably give him credit for.
That's almost completely understandable, isn't it? I mean, as you said, he plays a role, and listening to the people who ring up Drive for TalkSport, they are so angry that he's done his job absolutely perfectly. It's usually angry Cockney guy. It's just hilarious.
It's amazing. We get doing a lot of overnight shifts. I end up getting a lot of taxis, particularly with tube strikes on, and I can't get anywhere in London at the moment. And you'll find that taxi drivers, they know you're leaving TalkSport, so they want to talk to you about TalkSport because most of them listen to either that or LBC. And he is the one person who people either genuinely love or genuinely hate. He's really that divisive. Whereas everyone else, they've got some fans, some people not so much, and he's just, people really love to rant about Durham one way or the other.
Put it this way, I listened to a lot of Drive. I did not listen on Monday, and I still haven't listened all week because I can't bring myself to listen to Adrian say something about Liverpool, which means I ring up. I just can't do it to myself.
I think he's been positive on Liverpool overall this year.
Oh no, he has definitely.
And it's difficult. It's difficult to not be positive about them. To go from 7th to potentially winning the league. I mean, I was gutted that they didn't get a result against Chelsea at the weekend because I would love to see Liverpool win the league. I'm not a Liverpool fan by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not just pandering to the two of you because I'm on your show. But I want to see a team win the Premier League who haven't won it in the Premier League era. That's my strong preference. I wanted Man City to win it 2 years ago. I'd love another team to come out of obscurity. I'd love Spurs to finally, if they got Frank de Boer in, to, that money they're spending, that promise they show from time to time, to finally capitalise on that. Because more than anything else, I just hate it when one team wins things over and over again. It's dull.
It is dull unless it's your team.
But remember, we don't have to, pandering to us just because where we're from. Liverpool ain't my horse in that race, so
Dutton's Wednesday, isn't he? So, well, on your LinkedIn profile, which, as we said at the start, I've read verbatim, it said that you do Premier League international commentary.
I do.
Where does it get published? What countries are you going to?
Yeah, this is going to be really dull. So TalkSport have the international rights to the Premier League as an audio package, so for radio commentaries. So if you're anywhere outside of the EU, even if you're listening on something like the Comcast network in the US, or you're listening on local radio, if you're listening to English language, Spanish language, or Mandarin language commentary, you're listening to people commentating on the game for TalkSport and then broadcasting it worldwide. What they do is they'll have a lead game. So I'll do a 3 o'clock Premier League kickoff, and they'll have a lead game, which will inevitably be Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool, the sort of clubs which are favoured internationally. And then they'll have each other game will have a commentator on it as well, who's doing the full game. So I'll inevitably get Sunderland or Fulham or Newcastle or somebody like that. And I do the whole 90 minutes on my own without a co-commentator. And if you go on the TalkSport.com website, you can choose to listen to just my game, and then you get the goal highlights, etc., from my game as well at half-time, full-time, etc. But it's massive in the States. It's massive in a lot of parts of Africa, huge in Nigeria. The Nigerian radio station, national radio station, broadcasts our games live solely and exclusively. And so when you tweet about it, that you're on at TalkSport Live, you get some tweets from some of the oddest parts of the world, but it's fantastic and it's really enjoyable, and it's great to see just how much, I know people talk about whether or not this is the best league in the world, and I still believe that it is in terms of its level of competitiveness and the fact that the bottom team can beat the top team. And all right, Spain's taken a big step up this year. Whilst our quality over Europe isn't as high, it shows just how much appeal it has internationally. And I don't believe that if you did Bundesliga commentary, maybe La Liga, definitely not Serie A, anything like that, then it'd get the same pickup in Asia, in Africa, in South America that the Premier League does.
So, Will, what we know you from is Tuesday Morning Football originally, and the NFL. So our question is, how did you get into the NFL?
I kind of started a little bit later than many others. I'm not one of these guys who watched it on Channel 4 highlights in the 80s. I used to watch bits and pieces, and like most people, I was absolutely kind of drawn in by the razzmatazz and the show of the Super Bowl and just how much kind of pomp and circumstance and how spectacular the whole thing was. It was more kind of early 2000s, I took a trip out to the US. The reason I'm a 49ers fan, my dad works for a company who are based partly in Reading, partly in San Francisco. And so I went out there and I caught a game in a bar when I was far too young to be in a bar in America. And I just absolutely fell in love with it. And so I've probably only been a big fan of the game for kind of 12, 13 years now. And I know a lot of people are kind of carrying 25, 30 years of fandom for it. But just seeing it in that kind of environment and then watching games at university. I mean, I know what was odd is I heard Dixon on the show last week, and if people didn't hear that, he was talking about how, he got back into it at university, watching on Sunday nights with his friends. Now, me and Dixon used to present a sports show on the student radio station, but we never ever spoke about NFL because it was on when live football was on, and so inevitably that would be our main focus. We'd talk a bit of rugby, talk a bit of cricket, if those were on at the time, during the Ashes or whatever. But football became our real main focus. And it wasn't until he invited me to come and watch the Super Bowl at his house 2 years after we were doing this that we both established we were huge NFL fans. And it was odd that we'd known each other for so long without realising it. And so, yeah, I moved to London. You spoke about the Walsall thing. I'd been doing that in the Midlands. And, I wanted to come and try and do it down here in London and make maybe a bit of a name for myself. But I knew I needed to be practicing and doing stuff on air and being in front of a microphone more often. And, Dixon is a big enough nerd that I thought, well, if I can present and he can do all the nerdy stuff, then we're a half-decent team. So, I think covering it the last couple of years has just reinforced it as my favourite sport, though. I always loved it, but it was always kind of on the roster with other sports. But the more we've done the podcast, the more I've covered it, the more I've done the international series games, just the more I've fallen in love with it and the way it works and the people behind it are so great. And, I genuinely think it's the best sport in the world.
And the more NFL personalities that hate Will Gavin as well.
It's a select group, but it's quite a strong group of people. I don't know. Tomlin's probably the most terrifying man that hates me. Jay Cutler was pretty rude to me in the Bears locker room at Soldier Field. But I don't know. I think I've got a lot of guys that like me. I hope. Fingers crossed.
So how did as long as that army outweighs the people who don't, then...
I mean, you can tell me better than I can tell you, but do I come across as a complete tosser on the podcast?
Oh, God, no.
No.
I sound like I'm fishing for compliments, but genuinely I want to know.
To be honest, you're talking to two people who sound like tossers on a podcast anyway, so
yeah.
what are we to know?
Sounds like.
Yeah. How did the coverage on Absolute Radio 90s come about then, Will?
So, I mean, from doing the international series and getting to know the guys at NFL UK quite well and getting in with them and getting friendly with them, I did some work with the Channel 4 highlight show, and I went in for a couple of meetings with them. And then USP, who produced the Absolute show, the NFL show, as you will have heard if you've heard our fancy little soundbite at the end. Not that anyone is still listening at 12:30 when the game's over. We're aware of that. We just go on and behave like children for 10 minutes after the game's finished. They actually, I went in for a meeting with them potentially to do it as in a production capacity because they knew of my work with TalkSport, etc. And it was in that meeting that they realised, A, what an absolute nerd I was, B, the fact that I wanted to be a presenter and I had this show reel and they liked what I was doing, they liked my voice, bizarrely. And they called me back a couple of weeks later and asked me to go in for a meeting, which I thought was coming in to produce the show. And I got there and they said, look, Adam Hunt, who was presenting it, is moving to Florida. We need somebody new to present it. This was about week 6 or 7. Do you fancy giving it a go? And, it's been a fantastic opportunity. I love doing it. I love, getting in the studio with Dan and with the guys on the production team who are brilliant. And it's great fun and it's been a fantastic opportunity for me. And, it's a dream. I get to talk about what I love and get paid to do it.
How difficult is it when you obviously they flick between yourselves and the US commentary to not run across each other?
You'd be amazed at how difficult it is sometimes. It depends on the team, depends on the US guys out there. Basically, they'll come back to us and we'll have an idea of how long we've got, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever. And so before they come back, I'll say to Dan, all right, what do you want to do here? We've got this feature we've got planned. We've got some tweets. We want to chat about that. Something big's happened in the game. We make a decision kind of on the fly what we're going to talk about. We chat about it, and then generally we'll get kind of 10 or 15-second warning in our ear going, right, need to go back, and we'll quickly wrap up and hand back to them. So most of the time we don't miss plays, and we do get people tweeting us going, get back quicker, we miss plays. There are times where literally the radio station in the US comes back from an ad break and the quarterback's under centre and they're taking the snap. Well, we can't cut over to their ads for all sorts of legal reasons, so Dan's midway through a monologue about why the Colts are terrible, and suddenly I get in my ear, go back, go back, go back, go back, go back. Yeah, we get back as quick as we can, but occasionally we do miss little bits of plays, and I feel incredibly guilty every time we do it, and I get pelted on Twitter every time we do it. But honestly, if there was any other way of doing it, I'm sure we would. But it's a challenge every week.
Totally agree. It's something that's always on any of the shows where they dive between coverages, how they do it. Last thing on the NFL, what are you expecting for the 2014 season? Super Bowl for the crazy Harbaugh?
What am I expecting as a 49ers fan? A fall off. I think we're going to... I think we've lost some key pieces that people aren't talking about enough. I think the fact that Navarro Bowman's not going to be back for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, it currently looks like, is so much bigger than people are rating. Alden Smith, shouting bomb in an airport like the idiot he is.
I have done that myself, though, Will, to be honest. It's, you'd be surprised how unfunny the Americans find it.
And then, whether Chris Culliver, drink driving, we've got no cornerbacks, particularly if he gets a ban off the back of that. It's been one of the worst off seasons in terms of off the field stuff. I think we've got enough picks in the draft to move up and really address some of those needs, address some of those holes. I'd love them to go really bold and just throw like 6 or 7 picks at a team in the top 10 and go and get either Anthony Barr or Khalil Mack and just solve that issue in one fell swoop. Those both look like NFL ready guys. I don't think they're going to be that ballsy, but I'd love them to. But for the season in general, I have to agree with Dixon last week. I just want to see some change. I think Dixon got it spot on when he talked about the fact that, Manning, Brady, these older quarterbacks which dominate. Well, actually, what he failed to mention is, of course, the Super Bowl was won by a guy in his second season in the league, and they had a fantastic year, the Seahawks, and maybe that's the move in the direction we're going to see it going. We've got 5 or 6 young quarterbacks who are coming out of this draft who could all end up starting this year. We've got guys, Andrew Luck, the Colts offense with all the things they picked up this season. Maybe they're going to dominate in the AFC if they manage to address some of their defensive problems in the draft. On the NFC side, there's a couple of teams I could see creeping into the playoffs who were good last year but didn't quite make it. And actually, I think... what I would love more than anything else is when we get to the beginning of February next year, end of January, we're looking at the championship game, and bar my 49er bias, we have 4 teams, none of which were in that game last season.
That sounds good, because none of my team wasn't, and neither was yours, Dutton.
Well, the Eagles. I'd love to see the Eagles step up and do well. I'd love to see the Redskins come back to that form of 2 years ago. I think that RG3, if the Texans go out and draft one of Mack or Jadeveon Clowney, RG3 week 1 coming up against a pass rush tandem of one of those two and JJ Watt, we're going to see whether or not he's back to the player he was 2 years ago. I think they've got a really tough schedule, though. I think they're going to struggle to get back in. But yeah, I love what the Eagles did last year, and I'm hoping for more of the same now that Chip Kelly's had more time to bring his own guys in and build more of a team around what he wants to do with the team. So that's going to be a really interesting division this year, and I actually think the Cowboys could be in for a huge drop-off this year, and I've got my fingers crossed for it.
I have also got my fingers crossed. Dutton, fingers crossed?
I've crossed everyone's fingers.
Excellent.
Just woken the baby up to go and cross hairs as well.
Yeah. Last question from us, Will. What happened to Ollie?
Before you ask that one, mate, there's another one that when Mr. Dixon did list when you read his LinkedIn profile word for word about tea. How good a cup of tea does Mr. Dixon make, Will?
I wouldn't know. He never offers. Honestly, we get into the podcast. I'm like, do you want a water? Do you want a tea or anything? We get a water, we get in, and we just try and get on with it. We ramble so much. You know, the hour you hear is normally cut down from at least 90 minutes of us faffing about. We're recording a show tomorrow, which is going to be, we're doing an entire first round mock, which is going to be myself, Dixon, then Matt Sherry, as well from Gridiron Magazine, who I don't know if you guys met, but he's a top bloke. Ollie, who's only going to be allowed to pick for the Chargers and nobody else. He called it right last year. He said they were going to pick DJ Fluker, so we've got to give him that opportunity. And then we're getting some guests in throughout the show to pick for certain teams. So Tony Baselli is going to join us from the Jags, just like he did last year. John McClane, if you follow him on Twitter, if you don't follow him on Twitter, you should. He's brilliant. But that show, between getting the guests on, recording the whole thing, I feel like I'm going to be in the studio for about 4 hours tomorrow night, followed by another 5 hours of editing it down. And yeah, this is all a question off the back of tea, wasn't it? But basically, yeah. I'm not expecting James Dixon to make a tea in that whole time.
Which is shocking.
I've never experienced this high-quality level of tea. But what I would say is I'd like to challenge him to a tea-making contest, because I think I make the best cup of tea at TalkSport.
To be honest, I hope to see that when we all meet up again for the international series. Although I won't be drinking tea.
A tea off. It's more fun than 5k.
Yeah. Yeah, followed by the 5k that James is making us run now. That was a really bad idea. Well, Will.
Hello.
Quick last thing. What happened to Ollie when he did the 40-yard dash at the Hall of Fame?
How do you know about that?
We have sources.
To us.
There's a video of it, and it will maybe make an appearance one day. The video is tied up in all sorts of issues with the fact that we went out, as part of being out there, Sky lent us a crappy HD handheld video camera to film some kind of fan experience type stuff, and we were going to put together like a fan diary, but they've never done anything with it, and we kind of were like, well, can we put this video out there? Are you going to use it? And then I'm not going to slag anyone off. I guess for the new season maybe they will do, but yeah, basically we set up to do the 40-yard dash, and me, Dixon and Ollie did it first and filmed it, and I finished, I ran about an 8.2 while everyone else, it was downhill as well, this is on the pitch outside the Hall of Fame. But then they did another one where it was the 3 guys who probably came on our trip, including Ollie, who maybe could do it in a respectable time. And Dixon just came over to me as we were filming it and was just like, hand me the camera. I was like, right, okay. And he's like, as they come charging down this hill, I want you to full out sack Ollie. Now, we weren't wearing pads, we weren't wearing helmets, anything else. I kind of underestimated how fast he'd be running when he was trying to win a competitive race. And as he got to about 10 yards from the end, I ran into the middle of the lanes just screaming, sack, at the top of my voice. Kind of realised at the last second this was a real mistake, so tried to pull away. So I didn't fully tackle him, but I knocked his ass flying. He flew about 10 or 15 yards, landed pretty much on his head, shoulder and neck area. Might have been out cold for a little while.
Fantastic.
And basically I felt like an absolute arsehole for about the next day and a half. Ollie was really cool about it. There was another guy on our trip who was like, oh my God, I can't believe you do that. I was going to swear. I'm not allowed to swear, I assume. What a bastard. How could you? And Ollie was kind of cool about it once he'd got over the physical pain. But I'm never going to try and do that to him. He's only about 5'2", Ollie, bless him. And I feel incredibly bad about it to this day.
So Ollie's still alive,
I'm not
then Will,
case,
which is fine. And we'd like to thank you for your time, because I know you're mad busy and you've got to do a proper job now.
Absolute pleasure. Absolutely.
Cheers for that, Will. Really appreciate it. Well, that was the excellent Will Gavin. This has been episode 64 of Wax and Lyrical with Mains and Dutch. Thanks for downloading, guys.